play 5-card stud poker when I was 4 years old. My mama taught me. Mama and Daddy had dropped out of school at the end of 8th grade. Daddy was an unskilled laborer, and Mama stayed at home with us 4 children. We lived way out in the woods. We didn't have any close neighbors. In fact, we didn't have a television, a radio, or any printed material. Magazines, books, even children's books. But Mama had a deck of cards. Now later on in life, I would become a publisher. And when I started my own company, oh my goodness, I just listened to every motivational speaker possible. Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, Dennis Waitley. But the truth is, my mama was my first motivational speaker. You see, Mama really had a theory. Her theory was, we might be poor, but we were clean. Mother also had a problem. She didn't like to clean. She didn't like to do laundry, ironing, anything of that nature. So she would say to us children, you know, if you help me do whatever those chores were that day, we can play cards for the rest of the day. Oh my goodness, that was music to our ears, and we kids scurried around so that we could soon sit around an old table to play cards with her. Now, yes, it was an old table. It was battered, it was chipped, it had mismatched chairs. In fact, I have a side story about that. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. Some people call it Snobsdale. I just lovingly refer to it as upscale Scottsdale. Well, one day one of my affluent friends said, Wanda, would you like to go find furniture shopping? And I said, I would be delighted. So soon we were in this beautiful, expensive furniture store, and she finally spotted the exact dining room set she wanted. I kid you not. It looked just like my mother's old, battered table. She must have seen the look on my face, because she said, you don't do shabby chic, do you? I said, honey, I did shabby before it was chic. No. But I'm so glad that you enjoy that. Now back to my poker game. We'll have Mother dealing. This is a hypothetical game. We will have my mother dealing. And when 5-card stud, you put 5 cards, the first 5 cards face down. That's called in the hole. And then the other 4 are up. Now, we didn't gamble. None of us became gamblers. This was just a way to spend our time together. So we'll have Mother dealing out the 5 cards. And let's, in this hypothetical situation, have it that little Wanda at 4 years old has the 6 of hearts, the 8 of diamonds, the 9 of spades, and the 10 of clubs. Now, my older sister, Joy, who has always been a take charge kind of person, and I so appreciate her, would have said to me, hey, Wanda, if you have a 7 in the hole, you have a straight. And I want you to hear what my response would have been at 4 years old. Now, give me a minute. This really takes me a while to be able to say, because as most of you know, I write and publish grammar and writing textbooks. But at 4 years old, this is what I would have said. In fact, I'll show you how I would have acted. When Joy would have said, if you have a 7 in the hole, you have a straight, I would have said, I ain't got no 7. Did you hear what just came out of my mouth? I want to repeat it. I ain't got no 7. Oh my. Where had I learned to speak that language? From my parents. We all spoke it. In fact, it sounded right. Therefore, we were just a very happy group, and everything that came out of my mouth was basically double negatives and improper grammar. Fortunately for me, school came. At the age of 6, when I entered first grade, I went into such a happy state. I was this little sponge that just pulled in all of this knowledge. I was very fortunate. My district taught grammar from first grade, believe it or not, every year, part of the year, right through 12th grade. I was an excellent student. My mama would say to relatives, Wanda's smart. She makes honor roll. So I was just pulling everything in, and I learned to speak properly. I was doing well in school, and then someone made a mistake during my 8th grade year. I was placed in remedial reading. I was insulted. As an adult, upon reflection, that is exactly where I belonged. I would have done well in finding the facts. I would have done fine in getting the main idea. I had no idea about inferencing. I simply lacked the experiences. We were not only educationally handicapped, we were culturally handicapped. As for language, we didn't use higher level language in my home. We didn't use middle level language in my home. I would have probably scored a 0 on that part. Now, later on, I would learn the word flatulate. It's very melodious, isn't it? But I actually learned the other words from 2 of my cousins who came to visit from out of state. Now, they were quite the characters, and as we sat around this table, old battered table, playing cards, the 2 of them just amazed me because they did something I had never seen. Occasionally, one of them would jump up, go, pass gas, and do, I farted, oh! That's how I learned that terminology. Thank heavens that I had teachers in that school district who believed in teaching vocabulary both in context and yes, just list. And again, I was this little sponge and absorbed it. Daisha was a poor immigrant who came to America seeking her fame and fortune by creating beautiful hats. And she was absolutely an expert who worked so very hard. By the time I read the last page of that book, I knew that I was going to college. I knew I couldn't afford it, but I knew that that's exactly what I would do. I could work as hard as Lily Daisha and achieve my goals. At the end of that 8th grade year, the high school counselor came into our homeroom. And she asked us to fill out a paper that we would choose our course of study. I proudly wrote in advanced academic. I was going to college. It might not be for everyone, and I agree with those who say it isn't, but for me, it was my ticket out of poverty. The truth is, I really was tired of using an outhouse. It was my nemesis, absolutely. In fact, I would run out there quickly, sit on the wooden circle, put my tiny hiney in the hole, and pray that my body didn't fold in. You see, I had heard my dad say that he put lye down there to eat up all the you-know. And I just was absolutely sure that my tiny body was simply going to fold in and I would meet my demise in that outhouse. Let's fast forward to my high school year. I am in homeroom again. In the morning this time, I'm eavesdropping. Eavesdropping, mind you. Now, my adult children are just horrified how badly I eavesdrop. But I tell them, when you come from a family where you have eventually 7 of us gathered around a table, and there are 3 conversations occurring, and you're in all 3 simultaneously, it is a learned behavior. I learned how to eavesdrop. I was eavesdropping that morning when 2 of my peers were discussing a government loan. I interrupted them. I said, "Excuse me, where did you learn that information, Nancy?" And she said, "Well, from Miss Z." Miss Z was the high school counselor who had come into our 8th grade classroom when I filled out advanced academic. I said, "Thank you." At lunchtime, I found Miss Z's office. You see, I had never been in her office previously. She was sitting at her desk when I stood at the door. I knocked. We were taught to be respectful. And Miss Z rose and said, "Yes." And I said, "Miss Z, Nancy tells me there is an NDEA loan for prospective teachers." She said, "Yes." I said, "Well, I need that loan. Do you have a packet?" She said, "Why? You're not going to college." I said, "Miss Z, I've already been accepted at Shippensburg." She handed me the packet, and I left. Now, how did that happen? Well, I happen to be one of the children whom I call the forgotten few. We just slip through the cracks. You have them in your schools. There are children who aren't meeting their potential, or because of their background or their vernacular, you think that they are not quite as bright as others. That is so wrong. And part of my reason for being here today is I'm going to ask you, all of you, not just counselors, I'm asking all of you, look for those children. Sometimes you almost have to take them by the hand and lead them, because we don't know so very much. I didn't know that I was supposed to see Miss Z. I applied for college on my own. I went over for my interview, and when I was accepted, the letter actually came to my home. Don't be too hard on Missy. I've heard that she's had done marvelous work for others. But you see, we were just one of those families that people actually forgot. Now, that summer, after I was accepted, I worked 2 jobs. I worked as a maid in a hotel 6 or 7 days a week. And I also worked at a Walmart type store 5 nights a week. It was like Walmart, but it wasn't quite as sophisticated. I saved enough money to pay my part of my tuition, and then I worked the whole way through college. Now, a little side story. Jim and I like to travel. We go to London once or twice a year. It's Jim's favorite place. He says he resonates with the buildings, and I resonate with him. So I try to go as frequently as I can with him. When we go to London, we, by Jim's design, stay in the poshest area, Mayfair. Those luxury hotels are absolutely amazing. But without fail, before we leave the room every day, I follow my little scenario. I first pick up all of the water bottles, juice bottles, snack papers, put them in the trash. I straighten up, make sure everything is in its place. I go into the bathroom and I take the empty shampoo bottles. Now, I do use those. Those luxury hotel shampoos are amazing. And I take those empty bottles, put them into the trash, and then I put all the towels that we want to be laundered on a pile. If I've used the ironing board, I put that away. Invariably, Jim says to me, "Wanda, you're cleaning up for the maids again." And I say, "Jimmy, you just don't know how hard those people work. I will do everything in my power to help them to make their life a little bit easier." Let's fast forward to my junior year of college. It's May again. And this time, in May of my junior year, I received notification that my counselor wants to meet with me. When I walked in, he said, "Where have you been?" I said, "Sir, I didn't even know I had a counselor. I had done it again. You have to take us and sort of lead us around to make sure that we are covering all the bases." "I didn't know I had a counselor," I said, and his response was, "I see here that you have a double major." And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I also see that you will be doing your student teaching in the fall." I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you know if you give up one of your majors, you can graduate. You're finished." In November, we were on trimester. I said, "I'll keep my English major," and I said hallelujah the whole way home. I was hired to teach high school English at that school after I finished my student teaching. I was very proud. I was very happy. However, I left that position because I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. In Phoenix, jobs were scarce. Teaching jobs were scarce, I should say. And I had to take a job teaching 7th grade. I was not happy. That turned out to be one of the best moves of my life. It was there that I met Dr. Mary North, who showed me the prepositional approach to grammar, and an approach that I have used in my one series, my very first grammar series. I also had been influenced by Dr. Maxwell Maltz in his book, Psycho-Cybernetics. His theory was that it takes 21 days to change a habit. And I applied this to learning. If I wanted academic behavioral change, that means changing their language, I would include as many times as possible for those children to be using the correct vernacular. I also added my ideas and strategies. Soon, my students were prospering. They liked English, somewhat, they said, but they were just understanding and mastering so much of their language. One day, one of my 7th grade girls raised her hand. She said, "Are we allowed to correct our parents?" Now, inside, I am doing a happy dance. Woo, oh, oh, oh. But I said to her very solemnly, perhaps that wouldn't be such a good idea because you may be considered condescending. And then I explained that word. Thank heavens, her parents, along with others, came to visit me. They said, "Would you change your perspective on that? Would you simply ask the students to have a conversation about whether they should or should not change?" And I said, "I think that's an absolutely excellent idea." And then the parents said this unique sentence: "We had no idea our grammar was incorrect." Where did you hear that before? When Wandy was 4 years old and in with her wonderful family, and my family is absolutely wonderful. I love them dearly. But we were speaking that vernacular and we didn't realize it. It was then that I decided that maybe I could pull this all of my strategies, ideas, and probably worksheets too, into a book. So that is how Easy Grammar came about. I am not here to sell you books. My goal is to solicit your help in appealing to those parents to attend a free seminar. I'll repeat it, a free seminar where they can assess their verbiage, their language, to determine very quickly if they make some of the major errors, and then I give them absolutely easy ways that they can change their vernacular at mastery level. I have written a book, Easy Grammar's Guide for Parents. Improve your grammar in minutes. I didn't come to sell you that book, nor will I try to sell that book to your parents, the parents in your school or in your district. My goal is to help them assess their grammar. I will give them a packet that's based on my book, but the entire time I am teaching them and working with them. In order for you to understand a little of what I'd like to do, I've given you a packet. Now, the first page of your packet is identical to theirs. If you scan over it, you will note that I establish a rapport by telling them that I am their friend, I am their coach. And I tell them to relax. Nobody will know their score unless they choose to tell them. If you flip over to the back of that packet, you will see that I have ideas to help parents help their children change their verbiage. Now, I'm not going to cover every one of these. I do when I'm in that particular parent seminar, but let me just highlight a few of these. Number one, speak to your children in complete sentences. Children imitate you. Oh, I know it's easy when someone says, "Where are my keys?" for you to say, "On your bed." But if you say, "Your keys are on the bed," or "They are on your bed," you've used a complete sentence. And what will happen with children is they assimilate all of these syntaxes, and then they use them not only in their speaking, but in their writing. Number two, I ask you to use higher level vocabulary with your children. I encourage them to play games with their children. I also show them how they can directly teach language, vocabulary, and indirectly teach vocabulary. A direct way would be in a sentence like this: "Do you like kale, a green leafy vegetable?" That's a direct teaching. You have that appositive right beside the word kale. But you may also teach it indirectly. Where are your brothers and sisters? Tell your siblings that dinner is ready. There, you've just done a great deed of teaching the word siblings. Number three, use higher level sentence structures with your children. I guarantee they will absolutely imitate you. Now, it's easy for us to speak in short, choppy sentences. However, we can take a moment and organize our thoughts into higher level sentence structures. For example, Aunt Susie is coming to visit. We need to clean up the house. We can say, because Aunt Susie is coming to visit, we need to clean up the house. You've moved to a complex sentence structure, starting with a subordinate clause. Now, I know there's somebody in this audience who's thinking, I was told never to start a sentence with because. Well, you were probably told that when you were in about 3rd or 4th grade, because children at that age tend to write sentence fragments that sound like this: because I like you. Therefore, it was easier for your teacher simply to say, do not start a sentence with because. But the truth is, in higher level writing, it is absolutely fine, and really you appreciate it when people use such sentence structures. The last one, use correct grammar. I can almost guarantee you that your children, their children, will miss the exact same words, make the exact same errors as their parents. Number 4, use correct grammar. And when you do correct your children, I ask that you do it very lovingly. Now, in all fairness, if I want you to encourage parents to come to this parent seminar, then I need to ask you to take the same 2 assessments they will take. Relax, it will only take a few minutes. The first assessment is in verb usage. I will tell them, review with them really, that a regular verb, let me start again on that one. I will review with them that a regular verb adds ed to past time. To jump, jumped, had jumped. I had jumped for joy. To smile, I smiled, I had smiled. And then we have those irregular verbs that follow their own pattern. Some of them are easy. To find, obviously that's found, had found. We don't say I find it, my keys. To bleed, we don't say I bleeded. I bled when I was cut. I had bled for about 30 seconds. So we're going to deal with the irregular form where you put, and arbitrarily, I'm just choosing for us, had with it. Now please don't turn your packet page because I want to time you. I know the level of concern just went up, but let me explain why I want to time you. I need to know, and you need to know, really, what you automatically use. So, therefore, I want you to write the word that automatically comes into your mind first. None of this, oh, do I say this or do I say that? No. We want what is at the mastery level so that we can change that verbiage. I will give you approximately 2 minutes to do this. Relax, you'll have plenty of time. I give parents longer, by the way. That would be terribly intimidating. But as educators and administrators, let's do this in about 2 minutes. When you are finished, feel free to sit and chat until everyone has finished or the 2 minutes are up. Thanks. How did you do? We've taken the assessment. We've gone over the answers. And you have circled the numbers of any that you miss. Some of us may have only missed 4. Some of us missed 0. Some of us may have missed quite a few. That's what I say to parents. But I tell parents not to worry about it. It doesn't matter to me how many they miss. Because by the time that they leave, I will have shown them ways to change their verbiage. I like to tell the story as an analogy of learning. I like to tell the story of my 2 sons. When my older son Peter was bicycle riding age, 4 or 5, I took him out to the front of our house and I said, okay, Peter, and I showed him how to do it basically. And Peter did something that astonished me. Peter never wavered. Peter rode off like he was a naturally gifted biker. It was Mother who was running down the street saying, Peter, come back! Peter, come back! Now, my son Micah, on the other hand, did what the rest of us did. Micah fell all over the place, skinned his knee. Now, I can tell this story because I can also proudly say that my son Micah has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, here we go. Let's fast forward to today. Both of my sons have mountain bikes. Now, when they go out riding together and they jump on their bikes, do you think anyone around them could tell if which one actually faltered, fell, and which one rode off perfectly? No. And that's how it's going to be with this verb usage. Within 2 or 3 weeks, because I'm going to give you some ideas to do at home, you will all be speaking correctly. Now it's time to discuss Dr. Phillips's 21 times to change academic behavior. Let me tell you about learning. This is what research shows. We remember 10% of what we read. That seems really low, doesn't it? We remember 20% of what we see. We remember 30% what we hear. When we put that together audio visually, both sight and hearing, it takes it up to 50%. We remember 70% of what we say, but listen to this. We remember 90% of what we say while doing. I discovered this without the research. If I added any kind of movement, song, whatever, my students would learn it very quickly. Accelerated learning supports this as well. So this is what I would like you to do. I'd like you to look at your list of verbs. And I would like for you to allow me to discuss how I would like you to work with your children. Now remember, they probably use your same vernacular, but they'll be having fun, so not to worry if they haven't missed that. We'd be very happy. So what we're going to do is apply Dr. Maxwell Maltz's 21 times, and we are going to add movement. Now this is silly. I'm about to be very silly. Your children will love it. If you have older children, good luck. But your elementary children and even your middle school children will love it. Let's say that you miss to ride. That's one that is often missed, by the way. And it should be had ridden. Now, I want you to put to motion had ridden. Now, some of you will say, all right, let them do jumping jacks. Absolutely. Just don't tire your children. But what I try to do in the course of my teaching is to apply movement that was analogous to the action verb. So to ride would be had ridden, had ridden, had ridden, had ridden, had ridden, had ridden. 11 times this way. Had ridden, had ridden, had ridden, had ridden, had ridden 10 times this way. It is a process that's so easy, and yet you will be amazed. Within days, your children will be using the correct vernacular. To swim is had swum. I had a young teacher ask me one time, are you sure it's had swum? It is had swum. So had swum could be had swum, had swum, had swum, had swum, had swum. 11, had swum, had swum, had swum. 10 the other way. Now, some of the verbs do not apply themselves well to movement, so you come up with something creative. My 5th graders taught me the Macarena. Now, I want everyone to stand up. We are going to do the Macarena to had gone. To go is today I go, yesterday I went, I had gone. Okay. Now, if you have a different Macarena than I'm doing here, just do your own thing. Keep in mind, 10-year-olds taught me how to do it. All right, here we go. And we'll do had gone, 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 had gone. You'll have to do it probably twice. Isn't that fun? And you're learning, and they're thinking you are being perhaps a bit goofy, but explain to them, this research states accelerates your learning, and you don't want to waste your valuable time. Now, my brothers and sisters were older, and sister were older, and they taught me from the 50s the stroll. Now, I love 50s music, so this was just absolutely perfect for my teaching. I don't sing well, but just bear with me so that you can get the gist of it. Had done, 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 had done. And then I would teach them to go down the middle like they used to on bandstand, and my students would think, oh, that's fabulous. Thank you so much. Now, that's just great for children, but what about you? Well, if you're running in the neighborhood, I guess you could say, remember, you have to say it while doing. You could say had run, had run, had run. But you can adapt it to just about anything that you're doing around the house. If you are making barbecue sauce, you could be standing there at your stove, browning the hamburger, saying, had eaten, had eaten, had eaten, had eaten. Tomato sauce, had eaten, had eaten, had eaten, had eaten. You could get really creative. Had eaten, had eaten. It seems that with children, the jazzier they make it, the happier they are. And by the way, do ask your own children. I will say to parents, ask your children to come up with ideas. They will be very, very fun and creative. Another example of something that you might want to do is to practice in the shower. Let's say that you had missed had run. That one's often missed. And you're not a jogger or a runner. So, okay, I need to practice this. I'm really delighted to hear that we all follow a certain pattern in taking a shower. I don't know if that's true, but it's an interesting theory. But watch this for you in the shower. Had run, 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 had run. Do you see how it's so applicable? Now, if you do something like hammering in a nail, just be careful. But you could do it with the 21 times idea. Next, we shall take the assessment for regular usage. Sometimes pronouns cause some problems. Now I want you to relax, and that's what I'll say to the parents, because all that I want you to do is read 18 sentences and circle the first word that pops into your mind. That's what I'd like for you to do now. You will have 30 seconds to do 18. You may begin. Thank you. Now that we have discussed the answers, let me elaborate a little more with you so that you understand how I will discuss this with parents. Number one is I don't feel well. Not I don't feel good. I don't feel well. Now, some of you are going to say, oh, Wanda, people use it all the time. I am talking academics. I am talking that this is what is taught. You may disagree with it, but I highly recommend that parents teach the children the correct verbiage. Because the truth is, if you misuse terminology or words around people who know how to speak, it really sounds wrong to them. Next, number two, I am really tired. Not real. I hear people saying it. I'm real tired. No, I am really tired. To what extent tired, really? Now, there's a very easy way to know when to use real and really. First of all, real is an adjective, a describing word, like a real pearl. Really is an adverb. That's not all that important to know. But it tells to what extent. And here's the trick. If you can put very, I am very tired, then you know you will use really. I am really tired. Isn't that easy? Number three, you did well. Oh my goodness. To do is an action verb. And anytime you have action, you use well to tell how you do it. You might bowl well, you may golf well, you may, my husband says I snore well. You may eat well. They're all action. Even thinking is action. So you use well. If you are a coach, I tell the parents, please, please tell the children that they are playing well or that they hit well. I always have a few coaches who want to say you did good. It really sounds wrong. A little side story. Micah was probably in third grade, the first year he played baseball. And his coach, Micah hit the ball very hard out to left field. And Micah just took off running around those bases. And as he came around home plate, the coach, and I was sitting right there by the dugout, the coach said, "Hey, Micah, you did good." And Micah looked over at me and said, "Wow." And I said, "Uh-huh." You can teach your children, I tell parents, to speak well. There are 18 of those, by the way, that I do with parents so that I can help them to speak well. I have one last little story. My husband's family spoke well. But it seemed like after we were married, every time he would be around his buddies, he would start using poor grammar. And I said to him one time, "Jimmy, you speak so well. You know the correct words. Why do you do that?" And he said, "Because I'm just hanging out with my buddies, and that's how they speak." And I had the great aha. And I said, oh, thank you for saying that. Okay, Jimmy, here's the difference between you and the children whose vernacular I want to change. You know correct usage. You have the option of choosing to use it correctly or incorrectly. These children don't have an option. And trust me, people judge them. I personally do not believe that any child that uses poor grammar will go quite as far as his potential. It happens, but it's rare. Now, I am here and telling you my story totally to ask you, to appeal to you, to help improve education. Now, first of all, I am sincere when I say go back to your classrooms and look for the little Wandies. The children who you might not even think might make a good college professor at this point, who has that ability. But I can tell you, if they're saying I ain't got none, that's highly unlikely that they'll achieve it. Isn't our goal to improve education so that every child can meet his or her potential? So I'd like for you to look for those children. And yes, they need guidance. Do you know, again, I'm not blaming Miss C. I did not have one teacher at my school, and I had an excellent education, and they were excellent teachers, but I did not have one teacher who came to me any time and asked me during my senior high years, Wanda, what are you planning to do after graduation? Please remember that. And then, will you help me to change education, to improve education? Again, I'm not here to sell you books. I'm here to appeal to you that when I come to your school or district, in other words, when I'm invited to your school or district, that you will encourage your students' parents to come. Oh, it's okay to tell them I'm a little zany, and that they might even have fun. But do tell them that here is a lady who wants to help every child. Speak well. Oh, I'm going to put in this last story. I told you I was from upscale Scottsdale. I was in one of the boutiques one day, eavesdropping. Two ladies were discussing Duck Dynasty. I happen to like that show. I don't watch television very much, but it doesn't offend me. And the one lady looked at her friend and said, "Have you seen Duck Dynasty?" And the other lady said, "Oh my gosh, don't even talk about them. Their language is disgusting." And I could have kissed the other lady who said, "Are you aware that those young men have college degrees?" I tell you this because, yes, we also judge people by the way they speak. I wish that weren't true. But we do. We judge people in many ways, by their dress, by their actions, of course. But a huge part of that is the way they speak. Let's change American education. Let's improve it by not spending a dime. We simply want to invite parents to a seminar, let them take the 2 quick assessments that you've taken today, and let me share with them easy ways to improve their language and that of their children. Thank you.